Hello everyone, this is Jonathan Little. I'm here today with the 30th week of weeklypokerhand.com, and today we're doing something a little bit different. I'm going to be going over a hand that was seen on TV. I actually have no clue what happens in this hand, and I've never seen it. So it's going to be a first time for me, and I'm going to try to discuss what I see as we go through it. It's a hand apparently involving an amazing bluff by Jason Mercier. We'll check it out and see how things go, and I'll pause the video throughout to talk about whatever comes up.
Hawkins lays down Jack 8. Now Jason Mercier. King 10 offsuit.
Seems like every time we look up, Jason is in a hand, and every time we look up again, he's knocking somebody off.
King.
Looks like he opens King 10 from middle to early position. I think this is perfectly fine as long as you know how to play very well post-flop. I definitely suggest the amateur player fold these type of hands from early position, but like if I'm opening from there, I'm opening it for sure.
10, he raises to 39,000. Sar Wilf with ace king.
Wilf sold his tech company for $169 million, so he can dress as well as he wants.
Wilf facing another raise from his chip leader nemesis to his right. This time the raise to 39,000, and Wilf calls.
If I'm sitting there against Jason Mercier, me personally, I am 3-betting every time and never ever folding the ace king. I mean, Jason Mercier is kind of like a maniac. Not a maniac, but like certainly pretty aggressive. So I would certainly be 3-betting with the intention of getting it in. The problem with this is I don't know their stack sizes, but pretty much no matter their stack sizes, I'd be 3-betting for sure in position with ace king. If you do call pre-flop, you have to be very willing to not fold post-flop on a lot of boards. So guess we'll see what happens.
You know, it's not like I'm asking people to wear a coat and tie at the table. Just get something nice from, like, Banana Republic.
All right, the rest of the table folds, and so the two big stacks will butt heads again.
The man in white against the man in black again.
Wilf with the advantage with that ace-king. The flop is Jack, Deuce, 5, couple of hearts that misses both. Wilf extends his lead after the flop.
This is a spot where Mercier should be betting basically 100% of his range. And if you're sitting there with ace-king and know a guy's betting 100% of his range, you should like never ever fold. Particularly with backdoor flush draw, backdoor straight draw, and overcards. This is actually a pretty good flop for ace-king, assuming you do flat pre-flop.
Mercier first to act. And the big stack will put his armament to work. He makes it 48,000.
Well, Mercier is dominated, but he's trying to dominate this table and muscle up again.
Notice he only bets 48,000 to 120,000 pot. I think that's kind of a touch small. I would generally prefer to bet more like 58,000, something like that, but I think it's kind of negligible.
Well, looks like this time Wilf will not wilt away.
And Wilf does make the call. So these two will see a turn card. Wilf ahead. Turn card is a queen, both with straight draws. Mercier is open-ended. Wilf with a draw to Broadway.
Now, that card makes it easier for Mercier to posture again if he wants to, because he's drawn to the nuts now.
And he does come out firing, Norman, 107,000.
All right, this queen is a fantastic card for both players. It's much better for Mercier, obviously, because he's open-ended at this point, and Wilf certainly has to worry about running into ace, queen, king, queen, 10, stuff like that. So I guess it's much better for Jason. And he certainly should be betting the turn, which he does. If I'm in his spot again, I'd prefer a slightly bigger bet. It's kind of tough to say what he's trying to accomplish with this small bet. Maybe he thinks this guy is really passive, but they just said he sold his tech company for like infinite money, so he's probably not looking to fold too many hands. Yeah, so if I'm Jason here, I'm probably going to bet a little bit larger. Again, I don't know the stack sizes, so it's tough for me to say, but it seems like they're both pretty deep stacks. So I'd probably be betting like 150 here, and probably betting a lot of rivers, because when the guy calls the flop, you have to think the best hand he has is a jack. And if that's the best hand he has, you could easily represent the queen on the turn, then bet pretty sizable on the river, and you should be able to get a fold. So they're saying this is an amazing bluff. I hope we get to see it.
Wilf's got to think the queen is yet another card that could have paired Mercier's hand.
Wilf called pre-flop, called post-flop.
Wilf finished 222nd at the 2009 main event. You know, in The Princess Bride, doesn't the man in black always win?
That is true. And the man in black comes alive here with a raise to 250,000.
Yeah, this time he raises into the face of that big stack.
This is an interesting spot to raise. I mean, I'm not really going to say it's good or bad. It certainly looks strong. But, I don't know. This is a tough spot for both Jason and Wilf. If I'm in Wilf's spot, I'm probably just going to call again because I'm getting great odds. I'm just going to try to get there on the river. That would be my general plan. And maybe call if he bets small again. If I'm in Jason's spot and I see this raise, I would probably think the guy has something pretty good, and I would just, again, try to call and try to get there. Apparently that's not what's going to happen, though.
Now Mercier.
That being said, also, if the stack sizes are such that Wilf has maybe 1.5 million or so behind, this is a pretty cool spot to shove. That's going to be an amount that's going to give you a lot of fold equity. If Wilf has like 250K behind, it'd be an insane bluff. But if he has, you know, between like 1 million and 1.5 million, I think a shove would be pretty cool.
And Jason will put Wilf all in. Wow, that's showing some moxie.
Boy, Mercier is merciless.
So it says that he raises to 623. And I think this is not great because Wilf's getting a great price to call. He has to call, assuming these numbers are right, he has to call 380 more to win 1.1 million. Let's get out our calculator real fast. We're going to see that we're getting great odds. So he needs to win like 34% of the time. And if he's raising the turn here, unless he's just an absolute maniac, I would expect him to win that amount of the time. But clearly, maybe this guy is a maniac, and maybe Jason knows that he is very capable of putting on plays, and maybe he knows he loves the turn bluff. You know, there are some live players that love to turn bluff, and you know, if you see him raise a turn, you just don't fold because you know they're bluffing a lot of the time. So perhaps this is a very player-dependent read, but it's a cool spot.
They're both trying to bluff each other off the hand, but Wilf now has run out of bullets to bluff. I mean, how can you call off all your chips here if you're Sar Wilf? Mercier with a brilliant 3-bet here.
Mercier is put almost...
Listen how the announcer said it's a brilliant 3-bet, and I think that's probably being a bit result-oriented because it's brilliant because it's going to work in the spot, but you have to be very careful to not be results-oriented in poker. You know, if this guy is sitting here with pocket queens and he snaps Mercier off, is it still a brilliant 3-bet? And obviously the answer is no, and you just can't be super results-oriented. I imagine here Jason probably had a pretty good read on his opponent and makes probably what's a super standard shove in the spot for most good players. But yeah, don't be too results-oriented in this spot. Whenever you do get snapped off, if you get snapped off here and you think, oh man, it's a terrible bluff, or if he folds, you think it's a genius bluff, don't get too confident either way.
Half his stack into the pot is a big underdog. But he has Wilf covered, and that's where the pressure's coming from.
Well, give Wilf credit. I don't think he can call for all his chips here, but he seems to think Ace-King might be good, and it is.
Ace-King so intoxicating.
He's frustrated.
You listen to the announcer again saying Ace-King's intoxicating, and it's actually true for a lot of amateur players. They look at Ace-King, and they think it's the super nuts, and that's not necessarily true. But a lot of them do go nuts post-flop with it. Because like they slow play it pre-flop, so he thinks he's slow playing. Gets a flop, he's slow playing it still. Now on the turn he's going to bet with this Ace-King because he has Ace-King. And that's sort of like the end of the thought process. And I'm not saying that's what happened here. I actually think it's a pretty cool spot to semi-bluff. But I kind of doubt that's what he's doing it with, especially since he's like standing up now and looking all amazed like, oh my god, did my Ace-King get outdrawn or something? And I don't know. Be careful with Ace-King. Don't go nuts with it. I mean, just because you have an ace and a king doesn't mean you have anything. Right here, he has about the 150th nuts. You know, everything beats him. So, don't go crazy with it. Realize that you're bluffing when you're bluffing.
He's figuring out the pot, and he's figuring out the cause of his headache, Jason Mercier. Almost half his stack has gone into the pot, but if Wilf does fold, he'll still have 23, 24 big blinds left.
Yeah, in this spot, if I was Jason, I probably wouldn't have pulled this bluff, honestly, because this guy appears to be pot committed, but clearly he is capable of bluffing, and I bet Jason knew that.
Wilf does lay it down, and Mercier takes another pot from the amateur.
It's a good thing Wilf sold off his company before he met Jason Mercier.
Show one. You want to show one, just show it. Don't be shy.
God, I want to so bad. But
don't pretend you're going to show him one and then don't show it. That's really bad.
No,
man.
I can't do it. I wanted to. You'll see it on TV.
Tsar Wilf could not bring himself to pull the trigger on that call, and it cost him. He had over 1 million chips not too long ago, and now the Israeli amateur is down to 375,000.
Notice on the end, Jason did not show his hand. In that spot, I don't ever show a bluff at the poker table. The last thing you want is to show your opponent the line you take as a bluff. And Jason didn't show it, but he acted kind of weird, as if like, yeah, I was bluffing. And the last thing you want your opponent to know whenever you do run a sick bluff is that you did run the sick bluff in that spot. Because, it may tilt them, the exact opponent, but you have to think about all the other players at the table that are paying attention to you, particularly if the other opponents are good. They're going to look at you and realize that, that this is a line that he's capable of taking as a bluff. And obviously the good players are capable of taking almost any line as a bluff, which is what makes them good. But you really don't want anyone to know that kind of thing. You sort of just want people to think that you have the best hand and that you're just making the best hand every time. So that's going to be that for this episode. If you guys like this format, if you like seeing me going over a live poker hand instead of like a hand history, let me know. I mean, I'm more than open to doing anything like this. And if you have any hands that you would like me to see or like to see me go over, feel free to let me know. Send me a YouTube link, and I'll be more than happy to do that if there's enough demand for this type of thing. This has been Jonathan Little for weeklypokerhand.com. Thanks for watching.